The planet Elindra was known across the galaxy as one of the most peaceful colony worlds in the astral conquered. Forests of silver leaf trees covered its valleys, their branches ringing softly in the wind like chimes. Rivers flowed with clear blue water. The sky was wide, calm, and always full of slow-moving clouds that reflected shades of rose and lavender. Many travelers came here to rest, to study, or to escape from the noise of more crowded planets. Among the many species who lived here were the Aurelians, a gentle and quiet people whose skin looked like polished crystal, and whose voices sounded like soft echoes. They lived with strict discipline. They believed emotions were dangerous, too strong, too unpredictable, too capable of leading to conflict. So from a very young age, Aurelians learned to hold their faces still and to speak without passion. To smile was considered careless, to laugh was considered disrespectful, and to cry was considered shameful. But Lyra was different. She was only 17 cycles old, young even among her own kind. Yet she had something no other Aurelian had shown for centuries. She could smile. It was not a big or loud smile. It was small and soft, like sunlight passing gently through glass. But in a world where faces stayed silent, that small smile shined brighter than any star. Her people did not understand it. Some were afraid of it. Others believed it was a sign of emotional dysfunction. Elders whispered that she needed correction. Neighbors avoided meeting her eyes, worrying that her expression might make them feel something too. But Lyra continued to smile, not because she wanted attention, but because the feeling inside her chest was too warm to hide, and the only person who responded kindly to that warmth was a human. His name was Captain Orion Hale, though he did not look or act like someone who carried such a grand title. He was young, around 26, with brown hair that always fell messily over his forehead, and a uniform that looked like it had seen too many missions before coming here. He had been assigned as a peacekeeping officer, a representative of humanity to help maintain order and support local needs. But he did not feel like a soldier or a commander. He felt like someone who cared too much. Every afternoon, Orion walked down the dirt road that led to Lyra's village. He carried small packets of fruit snacks from Earth because Lyra liked the sweetness. The first time he gave her one, she had blinked in surprise, and then smiled wider than he had ever seen. From that day on, it became a routine. They sat together on a grassy hill that overlooked the quiet valley. Above them, the sky was always gentle, and the stars appeared even in daylight like tiny silver seeds. Lyra would ask questions, not about war or politics, but about emotions. "What is joy?" she once asked. Orion thought for a moment, looking at the clouds drifting slowly across the sky. "It's when your heart feels full," he said, "like you're glad you're alive in the moment you're in." "And what is sadness?" she asked next. He exhaled slowly as though remembering something heavy. "It's when your heart hurts because something mattered to you." Lyra listened carefully as if every word was precious. "I think I understand," she whispered. "To feel anything means you are living." Orion looked at her then, really looked, and realized how brave her smile actually was. She smiled in a place where smiles were forbidden. She dared to feel when others feared feelings. In that moment, he admired her more than anyone he had ever known. But not everyone felt the same. As days passed, Lyra's village began to change. People noticed her expressions growing stronger. Her eyes sparkled when she laughed. Her voice warmed when she spoke. And more importantly, others began to react. Some Aurelians found themselves touched by her presence. A few children tried to imitate the curve of her mouth. Fascinated by the strange gesture, the village elders did not approve. One evening, as the sun turned the sky golden orange, the Council of Still Minds summoned Lyra to the central hall. The room was carved from smooth crystal stone, and faint blue light glowed from the walls. The elders sat in a circle, their expressions flat and unreadable. "Lyra," the eldest said, his voice calm but distant, "your emotional display is spreading instability among our people." Lyra stood still, her hands clasped together. Her voice was quiet but sincere. "I don't wish to harm anyone," she said. "I only wish to feel." "Feeling," the elder replied, "is the root of chaos. Our ancestors abandoned emotions to survive. Conflict ended only when we chose peace through stillness. Your smile threatens that balance." Lyra's heart trembled, but she did not look away. My smile does not hurt, she said. It brings warmth. It brings connection. The elders exchanged slow looks. None of them understood what she felt. None of them wanted to understand. Starting tomorrow, the elder declared, you will begin emotional correction training. You will learn to remove your smile. The words fell like ice. Lyra felt something inside her break, not shatter, but tense like a thin crystal about to crack. When she left the hall, Orion was waiting outside. He had seen her expression, and it was not a smile. He stepped closer. What happened? Lyra tried to speak, but the words felt heavy. They want to erase my smile. Orion's jaw tightened. His voice lowered. They want to erase you. Lyra looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with a quiet fear. It is wrong to feel, isn't it? Orion shook his head immediately. No, Lyra, listen to me. Feelings are not a weakness. They are what make life real. Your smile is proof that you're alive. And it matters. Lyra's breath trembled. Then why does the world want to take it away? Orion did not answer right away. He looked at the horizon, where the light of the setting sun touched everything with gold. Because the world is afraid, he finally said. Afraid of change. Afraid of the unknown. Afraid of what it can't control. But fear is not a good reason to stop living. Lyra closed her eyes. She had always believed she was alone, but in that moment she knew she was not. Orion gently placed his hand over hers. His touch was steady and warm. I promise you, he said quietly, deeply, as if making a vow that would echo for years. No one will take your smile away. Not while I'm here. Lyra opened her eyes, and even though fear still trembled inside her, her smile returned, soft and luminous. The stars above seemed to brighten. She did not know that. Soon the entire galaxy would hear about the girl who smiled. And she did not know how far Orion would be forced to go to protect that smile, but for now, just for this moment, they sat together under the twilight sky, two hearts beating softly side by side. They did not know what waited ahead, but they knew this: her smile was worth defending, and he would protect it. The next few days on Alindra felt different, like the calm air before a distant storm. The sky was still soft, the silver-leaf trees still swayed gently in the wind, and the river still flowed quietly, but an invisible heaviness settled over the village. People spoke less. Footsteps sounded quicker. Eyes lingered longer on Lyra whenever she passed. The Council of Still Minds had not forgotten their decision. They simply waited for the correct time to enforce it. Lyra tried to continue living as she always had. She still walked to the grassy hill each afternoon. She still looked at the clouds and pointed out shapes. She still enjoyed the fruit snacks Orion brought. And she still smiled, though the smile came with a tremor now, as if part of her feared it would be taken away at any moment. Orion noticed that tremble. He never asked her to stop smiling. He only stayed close, giving her space but making sure she knew she was not alone. One afternoon, Lyra spoke softly while watching the clouds drift slowly across the pale sky. Orion, what happens when others decide who we are allowed to be? Orion was quiet for a moment. He pulled a small blade of grass from the ground and rolled it between his fingers. Well, he said slowly, we choose whether we accept what they say, or whether we stand for ourselves. His voice stayed gentle but firm. Most people don't stand. It's scary. It's hard. But the world has never changed because people stayed silent. Lyra listened carefully. I have always been silent, she whispered, but now, I do not want to be. That small confession carried the weight of a galaxy. Orion looked at her, truly looked, and felt a quiet pride. You're braver than you think, he said. Lyra smiled again. A soft, glowing smile, but in the forest below, hidden among the silver trees, observers watched them, not villagers, conquered envoys. They wore shimmering cloaks of pale metal thread, their expressions emotionless. They recorded everything they saw, the way Lyra smiled, the way Orion stayed beside her, the way her presence subtly changed those around her. Their message traveled across star systems in seconds. Subject Lyra. Emotional divergence confirmed. Recommendation. Intervention. The universe had now taken notice. 3 days later, a shadow crossed the sky. It was not a cloud. It was a ship, large, silent, and shaped like a floating cathedral of silver steel. Light reflected off its surface in smooth, cold sheets. The villagers gathered, staring upward with silent tension. Orion felt the air shift, heavy, cold, official. He knew that ship. It was a tribunal vessel. The ship landed near the village with a gentle hum. No dust rose. No smoke came. Everything about it was clean, controlled, and precise. From the ship, 5 Concord tribunal officers stepped out. They were tall, wearing white robes with silver edges. Their eyes were calm. Their movements were smooth. They looked like people who believed deeply in rules and in nothing else. The village elders hurried to greet them. The conversation was quiet at first, spoken in the slow, formal language of the Aurelians. Orion could not hear the words, but he didn't need to. He could see from the elders' posture that this was no friendly visit. He found Lyra standing behind him. Her hands were clasped tightly. Her smile was gone, not taken, but hidden by fear. The lead tribunal officer turned to address the village. His voice was steady, controlled, without a single trace of feeling. We have come to escort subject Lyra of Aurelia to the Central Correction Hall. Emotional deviation has been observed. Emotional correction is required for safety and harmony. Every villager lowered their head. Every villager except Orion. He stepped forward, placing himself between Lyra and the tribunal. His voice was calm, but strong. She is not a danger to anyone. The tribunal officer blinked slowly, as though confused by the idea that disagreement was possible. Emotion is unpredictable, he said. If emotions are allowed, they spread. If they spread, conflict follows. One smile becomes many. One longing becomes desire. Desire becomes disorder. Disorder becomes war. We prevent war. Orion shook his head. You prevent life. The tribunal did not react. They did not get angry. They did not raise their voices. They simply continued. Human representative, the officer said. You have no authority to interfere in Aurelian correction procedures. Stand aside, but Orion didn't move. He didn't draw a weapon. He didn't make threats. He simply stood there, tall and steady like a quiet mountain refusing to bow to the wind. Lyra stepped closer behind him, her voice barely above a whisper. Orion. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. I said, he repeated, his tone gentle but unbreakable. She is not a danger. A silence followed, deep and tense. The tribunal looked at him carefully now. Not with rage, but with something like curiosity. Humans were known to feel strongly, yes, but to stand against an entire governing body for the sake of one person's emotional expression? That was unusual. Why? The lead officer asked simply. Why protect her smile? Orion's answer came without hesitation. Because it matters to her, and she matters to me. The villagers whispered softly. The wind slowed. Even the silver leaves seemed to become still. Lyra's eyes widened, not with surprise, but with something warm. Her heart felt full. She had never realized how much weight such simple words could carry, but the tribunal was unmoved. Personal attachment, the officer said. Another form of emotional instability. He reached out a hand toward Lyra, and that single gesture changed everything. Orion stepped fully between them. There was still no violence. No shouting. No pushing, just a line drawn, clear and final. The tribunal officer lowered his hand. He studied Orion the way a scientist studies a new species. You cannot win, he said. Orion answered quietly. I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to protect someone I care about. The tribunal exchanged silent communication through subtle glances. Then the officer spoke again. Very well. The matter will be escalated to the Concord High Council. A hearing will be held in the astral chamber. The girl will speak. The human will speak. A ruling will be made. Lyra's breath caught. Orion placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We'll go together, he said. The tribunal gave a single nod. They did not stay. They did not force anything. They simply turned and walked back to their silver ship, disappearing into the sky as quietly as they had arrived. The village exhaled, a long breath that had been held for minutes. Lyra turned to Orion then. Her eyes shined like stars reflected in water. You didn't have to stand for me, she whispered. Orion smiled, tired, soft, real. Yes, he said. I did. Lyra felt warmth bloom in her chest. It felt like courage. It felt like hope. She took a slow breath and spoke words she had never spoken before. Then I will stand too. Their journey was now no longer just about a smile. It was about every living being who had ever been told, "Do not feel." And the two of them, a crystal-skinned girl and a stubborn human with a gentle heart, would face the entire universe together. The journey to the astral chamber began at dawn. A long silver transport ship waited in the valley, its engines humming softly like a distant whisper. Lyra stood at its base, her hands folded together, her small smile trembling but still present. Orion stood beside her, close enough for her to know she wasn't alone. The villagers had gathered to see them off. None of them spoke. Aurelians rarely did, but there was something different in their eyes now. Something not cold, not distant, something almost like understanding. One small Aurelian child stepped forward. Her crystal skin reflected the morning light like a rainbow. She looked up at Lyra and attempted something unusual. Her face moved on just slightly, forming a small, shy smile. Lyra's breath caught. Her heart felt warm. The elders watched but said nothing. Maybe even they were starting to wonder. The ship lifted slowly into the sky, leaving Alindra behind. Lyra sat in a seat near the window, watching her peaceful home shrink into a speck. Orion sat beside her, his posture calm but alert. "Are you scared?" he asked quietly. Lyra took a slow breath. "Yes," she whispered, "but I do not wish to go back to silence again. If fear is the price for being myself, I will pay it." Orion smiled softly. "That's what bravery really is." Lyra turned to him, studying his face. Humans had such expressive features. Their eyes, their smiles, their laughter. Everything felt alive. She wondered if her people would ever understand what she had found. The astral chamber was not just a building. It was an entire station floating in the middle of a nebula made of glowing blue and violet clouds. Stars shimmered in every direction. It felt like standing inside the heart of the galaxy. The chamber hall was massive, shaped like an open dome, lined with floating platforms where representatives of 27 different species watched silently. The atmosphere was quiet and heavy, as if the entire galaxy were holding its breath. Lyra and Orion stood at the center. The High Council observed them from an elevated platform. Their leader, an ancient Aurelian elder named Kalis, spoke first. His voice was calm, clear, and echoing. "Subject Lyra, you stand before us because you have allowed emotions to manifest and spread among your people. Explain." Lyra stepped forward, though her knees trembled. She lifted her chin. "When I smile," she said softly, "I feel alive. When others see my smile, they feel something too. Warmth, connection, hope. This is not a danger. This is life." There were murmurs, soft whispers among species who had long forgotten how to feel beyond duty and logic. Kalis continued. "Emotion leads to conflict. Desire leads to chaos. We have lived in peace for centuries because we removed these risks." Orion stepped forward now. He did not bow. He did not look intimidated. He simply looked steady. With respect, he said, "Peace without feeling is not peace. It is silence." The chamber stirred again. "Humans," Kalis said slowly, "are known for chaos. You fight wars. You act on impulse. You break rules. Why should we believe your perspective is safe?" Orion nodded, accepting the truth and yet holding his ground. "You are right. Humans feel deeply, sometimes too deeply. We make mistakes. We fall, we fail, but we also love. We forgive. We build, we hope, we dream. We live." Lyra looked at him, her eyes warm. Orion continued, his voice quiet but filled with conviction. "Life isn't supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be real." The words hung in the air like stars suspended in silence. One of the council members, a tall being of living stone, shifted and asked, "Lyra, do you believe your smile brings good to your people?" Lyra turned slowly to face the crowd. Her hands trembled, her heart pounded, but she remembered the small child in her village. She remembered Orion's warmth. She remembered the first time she realized she wanted to feel, so she did not speak with arguments or logic. She simply smiled, soft, quiet, pure, and something happened. A ripple passed. Through the chamber, not seen but sensed. A gentle warmth like sunlight through cold glass. Not overwhelming, just real. One of the council members blinked rapidly as if something inside them shifted. Another lowered their head slightly, breathing deeper. No one broke. No one cried. No chaos came. Just a moment of humanity, shared across species. Even Kalis, the stern elder, paused. His eyes softened an almost invisible amount. His voice, when it came, was lower. Emotions do not always destroy, Lyra nodded. They can heal. Silence again, but this time not heavy. Thoughtful. The council discussed quietly among themselves, voices low and measured. Lyra and Orion stood together, waiting. Lyra's hand found Orion's. He gently closed his fingers around hers. Finally, Kalis stood. His voice echoed through the chamber. Lyra of Aurelia, you are permitted to keep your emotional expression. No correction will be enforced. Lyra inhaled sharply, relief flooding through her. But the elder was not finished. Furthermore, emotional suppression among Aurelians will no longer be required. Each individual may choose. Emotion will be allowed, not forced, not denied. The chamber murmured, not with fear, but with wonder. It was a change that would reshape generations. Orion exhaled, shoulders relaxing. Lyra turned to him, and for the first time without fear, embraced him openly. Her smile shined like a star. Weeks later, they returned to Elindra. The village was quieter than before, but not cold. Children watched Lyra with open curiosity. Adults did not look away. Some still felt unsure, but none seemed afraid. The little Aurelian girl from before ran up to Lyra again. This time she smiled first, bright and brave. Lyra knelt down and returned the smile. The girl laughed softly, the sound gentle like ringing glass. Something new was beginning. Not a revolution, a reminder. That evening, Lyra and Orion sat on their grassy hill once more. The clouds drifted lazily across the sky, tinted pink by the setting sun. Lyra leaned her head against Orion's shoulder. "Do you think the universe will change?" she asked. Orion smiled, warm, steady, patient. "Not all at once," so he said. "But sometimes, change starts with one smile." Lyra closed her eyes and smiled, not just with her lips, but with her whole being. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" he asked softly. "For protecting my smile." Orion looked up at the wide sky, at the stars that now felt closer than ever. "I didn't protect your smile," he said gently. "You did." Lyra opened her eyes and looked at him. Her smile held peace. Her smile held courage. Her smile held the story of a universe that once tried to silence her and failed. Because one human stood beside her, and because she chose to remain herself. And that was enough to change everything. The end.